Hello, Carlton Pearson, and welcome to Streaming Consciousness. Who are you? Why are you? Let's do some thinking, like the thinker back there. You are, I am. Listen to these lyrics, and we're going to talk about some pretty interesting things tonight about who we are. To know yourself, you must remember yourself. An angel asked me, do you know who you are? The question and the answer. It's not very far. The song of the sages, knowledge of the ages, is living where you reside. Think about this. You have the key. You are the key that unlocks the door to enter into that sacred place. You've never been there before. Deep meets too deep. Soul to soul. Whoa. Feel that connection as the truth unfolds. I am. I am. We are. You are. You exist. That's what being means. Your essence. Your immutable self. Yeah. Are you feeling this? Come on, stay with me a minute. You are the answer. You are. You are your own answer. Unlocks the door to freedom and leads you to me. We have come together by divine ordination. Whoa. There's no separation. We are one in the same. Child of the Creator. That's important. We don't have to go along to get along. That's what inclusion is all about. I am. You are. I love that song. That's my friend Charles. He's Charles Holt. He's an incredible singer, a very, very good friend, personal friend, and I love him dearly. And oops, sorry, my phone's on. He's part of me. Whoever that's calling should be watching this live, but they don't know I'm live from Orange, California. I don't know who that is. Listen to this. To know yourself is to remember yourself. When I say remember, I mean to remember your dismembered self or soul. Our lives consist of millions of small threads of memories. And I like to say memories, things that we nurse and nurture at the very breast of our souls. This program, indeed this ministry that I'm now involved in, is about reconnecting with who you are inwardly, the forgotten and often misplaced, substituted person. You've misplaced your soul and substituted with an imposter, with an impersonator, somebody who prefers to be liked rather than to be real. Who are you really? What's working for you? I always ask these questions. What's not working for you? What's working through you? If you made a list of what's working for you and what's not working for you, which list would be the longest? What's working for you? What's not working for you? Do you perceive to be working against you? Or what's working as you or through you? Really, what's working on you? What's really dealing with you? This has been an incredible week, an incredible day from the Boston Marathon bombing to the Waco bombing of the fertilizer plant, and the people who are traumatized and killed and injured and maimed or dismembered, young people with amputations. technological disasters, from the computer glitch with the American Airlines the other day, causing many planes, hundreds of planes to be grounded and thousands of passengers to be stranded, the horrific explosion in Waco, the apparent domestic terrorism. What's going on? What's happening out there? Overall, from global warming to the discovering of new planets and billions of galaxies, the universe is correcting itself. All of this is not about some judgment from God. It's the universe correcting or making itself accurate or correct, to be resurrected or erect, means to be upright, to stand up. I want to live as precisely and accurate a life as I can. I'm 60 years old, and after all these years, I'm really reconsidering what I believe, why I believe it, how those beliefs add to or subtract from the quality of my life. I am. What does that mean? This is the last half of my life. I got to get it right this time. Or when I say right, I'm not talking about right or wrong in the normal sense of the way we understand those terms. When I say right, I mean accurate and precise and as exact a person as I can be. Opening all the compartments of myself and my soul. Those areas where I've never been before, where I was afraid to even peek in because I was comfortable in whatever bondage I had. Some people don't want to be free because they've mastered bondage. They're at home with bondage. They're used to the plantation life, if you will, if you compare that to the slavery times. Mass has been good, and I'm talking about religion and the bondage of mind. And when I say institutional, I'm not talking about spirituality when I say freedom. I'm talking about being free from something. I'm talking about institutional, organized religion, which is becoming increasingly distasteful to millions of people. I hear from thousands of you who just don't like it anymore. And I think these things like domestic terrorism and homeland security and distrust of government and expatriatism. An expatriate is somebody who's left the country or left the culture behind. Many people are expatriates, as I am, to the comfort of religion. I left the culture. Not all of it, of course. There's certain aspects of it that I probably will never, ever be rid of, and maybe I don't need to. But the bondage, the dogma, the tyranny, the fear-based theologies, the unreasonable dogma, the fear-based mentality of a God with a terrible anger management problem that throws these tantrums and is mad at everybody and mad at all the angels and mad at the devil too and mad at you and made us devils, and this whole mythological, theoretic approach to spirituality that I call religion. It served a purpose, perhaps, but it's running out of steam, and it's on life support institutionally. People are trying to prop it up and make it real and make it count, and it's becoming increasingly irrelevant. And it's frightening at first. It was to me. I operated in ministry for many years with huge crowds, traffic jams outside my church, conferences that commanded crowds within a week, between 30 and 50,000 people would visit Tulsa. Some of you who are aware of my Azusa background, the greatest preaching, the greatest singing of our particular expression or genre or discipline, awesome. It was thrilling. There was people, there was presence, the presence of God, there was money, provision. But my soul was lean. I was bored with what was going on. And I started asking questions. I mean, I majored in biblical literature, English Bible, in college. I minored in theology and historical studies. I studied as a protege of Oral Roberts, the man whom I call the Pope of Pentecost. A great man, a great university. I was totally served on the Board of Regents for 15 years. Traveled with him, with his son Richard. Went all the way to Africa with Oral and preached to 250,000 people in the stadium, about that many outside the stadium, they tell me, in Ghana. I've been back and forth to South Africa. I've been to China. I've been all over the world. I've recorded. I've written books. I've done so much. And yet, I'm at a place of a new beginning. With all that, I had to lose a lot. I walked away, or it walked away from me, or something. But I'm not complaining, and I'm not dwelling on the past, because I'm completing the past and embracing my future. I acknowledge my past. It all had its place. I don't deny, denounce, or disown it. I own my past. It has informed my present, and it is projecting me into my future. So is yours. Memory. We are little threads of memories. So to know yourself, you have to remember yourself. The different fragments of yourself that are left in different places. You remember the dismembered self and soul. That's what I'm trying. I call that self-actualization. Being actually, factually, functionally, and punctually you. Not an imposter, not an impersonator. We impersonate who we think people want us to be so that they can like us. And then we never like ourselves. You know what has happened to me in the last 10 years? I've actually gone from self-loathing to self-loving, to my I am being. The Christ mind, some people like to term it. The God mind. The idea that spawned and sponsored my existence on this planet, on this plane, within this plan, and as a plant that I work and walk out my own salvation. Not being saved from God or the wrath of God. I don't need Jesus to protect me from God. Jesus reconnects me to God in consciousness by the way he taught and lived. And I'm a follower of the Christ person. Not religiously, and not the religion that bears the name. It's hard for me to explain myself without using certain terminologies. And those are even changing. But I'm evolving, and I'm saying this to people who relate to what I'm saying, and maybe that's why you're tuned in or you do tune in. I get a lot of letters and emails and responses from people and questions, and there's so many people, I think probably millions, who are reconsidering a lot, and they're trying to figure out why they're going through this shift. There's a restlessness, there's a kind of an anxiety, there's even a suspicion out there. To be suspect is to believe or feel that something or someone is guilty of being illegal or dishonest or disingenuous without absolute certain proof. You sense that something's just not quite right. You've been around it, you're sensing, why is it feeling different? I sense something. Growing numbers of people are becoming increasingly suspect of religion as they've known it. And they're rethinking what they believe and why they believe it. There's a growing restlessness and anxiety out there. And even these recent acts, I think, of disparity that we're calling domestic terrorism, they're triggered by a distrust of government, a distrust of institutions, including religion. These are all signs of the times and turns and shifts in consciousness. They seem abrupt. They even seem abrasive. But this is because there's no guidance out there. There's no point of identification for millions of disillusioned people who are mistaking and maybe misinterpreting their awakening to be something that they should resent or react to rather than simply respond inwardly and peacefully to. So they're shooting and planting bombs, and they don't like themselves. They don't like the system. They don't like the way things are going, or the way they've been, or the way they're changing, and they don't know how to react. Calm down. You start changing physically as you age. The anatomy, the biology, the psychology of your being shifts to your aging. It's part of the aging process. The universe is different. The world is different. Even for me to be able to speak to you live wherever you are in the world, in whatever time zone, and people do actually get up or stay up late, 6 hours different, 8 hours different, just to hear this live when they could sleep and get it archived. But some of you are awake and you're listening. You might be fidgeting with your cell phone at the same time, texting. You might be blogging. You might be watching television. You might be listening to music. You might have earphones on. You might be driving in your car. There's all kinds of ways to access reality and truth and to self-actualize. And all of the components ultimately work together. I consider myself to have evolved in my mindset, in my consciousness, in my ministry from a normal evangelical preacher to a freedom fighter. I said this last week. When I say freedom fighter, freedom means the power of self-determination attributed to the will, the quality of being independent of fate or necessity, not dependent on either fate or necessity, but still relevant by choice. I am relevant by choice. When I say fighter, as a freedom fighter, I'm not so much a warrior using weapons of mass destruction or violence to defeat or defend something. But a person, when I say a freedom, a person who does not easily admit to or concede to defeat. In spite of difficulties and opposition, I won't admit to defeat or concede to it because I'm not defeated. In fact, I'm not a victim of circumstances. I'm a victor over them. I'm about helping you and anyone who desires it gain personal freedom from the tyranny of religion, unreasonable dogma, and fear-based theologies. Theologos, logic. What is your God logic? What is your vision or view of God? And do you need to revise it? I have revised mine. I had that mean old God with the temper tantrums and the anger management problems, and I was afraid that God was a terrorist, that God was a monster, and religion presented that monster to me and to masses so it could control us. And now on this 13 year and 13 is the number of revelation and revolution. It's like you awake, it's like, gosh, I don't have to live like this. I don't have to be like this. I don't have to think like this. And you break loose. Sometimes it's done in a more of a violent way, and we're seeing it all over the world. And here in America, people are restless. That's why I take the risk. Yes, I lost a lot to get out here and say this, but it's important that I help you find that freedom and read and rethink. It's okay to ask questions. I give you permission, not that you need it from me, to love yourself and to love people who are not like you, and to engage conversations with people who think differently and learn from them, and to have communion, common union with them. Because we are social beings, which means we're attracted to each other innately. We like other human beings. We're social, spiritual, sensual, sexual people. All of those S's work together. That's what being a human being is. When I say tyranny, freedom from tyranny, I'm talking about cruel and oppressive governmental rule. That's basically religion. And for some people, government is religion. It's a religion-run government. Certain Islamic nations or the Jewish nations or the Christian nations, Hindu dominating, the Buddhist dominating. I mean, when you have religion as a state religion, then you have state tyranny, whatever the religion, however peaceful it may be. And I'm not against all religions because they'll always be, but we are evolving out of religion into a different kind of mysticism. I call it the age of Aquarius, aqua, water, mist, moisture, a new sense of cleansing, purging, something that's remedial and not punitive but purgative. We're detoxifying from toxic, and that word just basically means poisonous religion. When I say dogma, that's a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. And you got to hew the line and stick to whatever they say. I'm away from that. I believe in authentic humanity and dignity. Being who you are. Human beings being human. That's more practical to me and more productive and spiritual than the false humility of disingenuous man-made rules and rituals. If you tell people what they already believe, which most religions do that, then they do what they've already done. We tend to believe what we are told or taught and or what we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves what we have been told. We're all listening to opinions of what I'm saying. I call us that we carry passengers. We pick up passengers along the way. I'm talking to you now, and you're listening to commentary based on your passenger, who's ever in there. It may be nameless and faceless. It might be your father who has transitioned in another world, but you still remember things he or your mother or your godmother or your grandmother or your best friend or your lover or your partner or your husband or your boyfriend. Somebody said that to you, and you're carrying all this baggage and luggage and all these voices and opinions with you, and it's hard for you to engage direct concentration because you're listening to all those opinions, and they're running your life. Those are not personality disorders. Those are personalities out of order. You have to know how to say, shut the front door. Tell them to shut up and start all over again. What you say? These are posts that I put out here this week, and they're pretty interesting, and I got some pretty interesting responses, and I want to go over some of them as I have, because we are really freedom fighters, and we are breaking away, and I have a lot of challenges, but I feel that freedom, it keeps increasing in me. You want it? You can have it, but it's not for cowards. It is a law of physics. Anything in motion causes friction. Friction only comes to give you traction for forward thrust. If there's too much oil, too much lubrication, you're spinning your wheels. So sometimes friction comes to give you that important traction so you can move to the next level. And you can. Here's one of the posts I put this week, and I want to kind of start off my statements, the rest of the conversation with this. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. Friedrich Nietzsche said that. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. Now, what is an illusion? Because I think we all have them. An illusion is something that is or is likely to be wrongly or inaccurately perceived or interpreted by the senses. It's a deceptive appearance or impression. In my opinion, that's most institutional religion. It's an illusion to all of us. And I keep talking about religion because most of the wars that have ever been fought in human history have been fought around religion. Christianity has done more horrific murderings and torturings in the last 2,000 years, something Jesus would have been terribly appalled with. The religion named after his Christology, his messianic consciousness. And there have been various messianic personages or persons, from a Krishna to a Buddha. Yeah, there's been all these personalities. Osiris or Isis or Horus in Egyptian religion. Pythagoras, Dionysius. Of course, I'm naming people most of you won't know about. But if you study history, there's always been these type god men, or they suppressed the women, because there have been women that were mystics and shaman and very powerful as well. When religion moved to the West, the male chauvinism came in, and they started suppressing the idea of the feminine goddess or the feminine deity, the feminine aspect of your humanity. Whether you like it or not, you're bisexual. You have a feminine aspect and a masculine aspect. All females have a male aspect. You have testosterone. All males have a female or a more tender aspect. It's called estrogen. When you know when your female aspect will show up? When you feel, when you are tender, and you men tend to express it in anger, but it's when you feel threatened or you've been hurt. But you're not going to say, you hurt my feelings. That's too feminine. You're deep in that voice. I'm a man. I don't need nobody. Get drunk. Men do that because they're afraid. Or a woman will just cry. The feminine aspect will just cry. Be tender. Be pliable. Hurtable, if you will. The man doesn't want to be hurt. You are hurting as much as the female. The male hurts as much as the female. We just respond to it differently. So when the man gets in a relationship, very often the male aspect gets in touch with his feminine aspect, he gets angry or deep or tries to assert himself because he doesn't know how to deal with his feminine self. My wife often has said to me many times, you need to be in touch with your feminine self. And I always say, I am in touch with my feminine self. I'm trying to get in touch with your feminine self. She can be manly too. So in that sense, we deal with the various aspects of our psychology, psyche, psyche, Greek, soulish, the logic of the psyche or the psychology, the logic of your thinking, your thought life. Hell, as most people have been taught it, this is part of that post I made this week, is an obscure, what I mean when I say obscure, I mean uncertain. That's all speculative, it's imagination. But the one we've been taught, it's obscure, it's absurd. Hell, eternal damnation, weeping and wailing, eternally. That's metaphorically and allegorically, metaphysically expressed in Scripture. But when you take it literally, the literal place, it's absurd, it's obscene, it's a vulgar concept. Very harmful. Psychologically eroding. It breaks, half the folks that are deeply into religion, it's psychotic. They're crazy, including me. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, gave it back. Some of the most messed up people I know are preachers. Highly gifted, powerfully in our language anointed, prolific in the pulpit, waxing eloquent, and just as screwed up in their thinking up away from that pulpit. In fact, sometimes they actually go insane in the pulpit and manipulate, and I've done it. thousands of people into my insanity. But it worked. It didn't seem insane. It seemed very pure. Sanitizing means impure, contaminated. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just not thorough. It's not accurate. It's not pure. When you get into your pure self, you're going to feel a little bit alienated and isolated because you're not used to that. You're used to all this other stuff, all this toxicity. Some of it's your faith. You believe in poisons. They're talking about legalizing pot here in the state of Illinois. It passed the state legislature. It's got to go now to the Senate. And the governor's not sure whether or not he'll sign. I think he will. I'm talking about medical pot, marijuana or marijuana for medical purposes. And my doctor friends tells me it's very important to people who are suffering with MS, multiple sclerosis, or who are having reactions to chemotherapy, and there are millions of people dealing with cancer, that marijuana can address it in ways, pain and whatever. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but I listen to my doctor friends' opinions, and it'll probably happen. There's so many drugs we take. Mind-altering drugs. Sometimes it's just a painkiller or something to sedate you to go to sleep. Food can be some kind of a drug. There are different reactions and responses to sugar, stimulants, to salt or sodium, carbohydrates, proteins. There are good and bad. Depends on how you use it. I mean, it can be destructive or it can be very helpful. Everything in moderation helps. But this whole concept of hell, those who believe in the traditional concept of hell as eternal damnation in a customized torture chamber tend to create it for themselves and for everyone else around them, including people they love. There's a higher divorce rate in communities of faith than there are in communities of atheism. Because the more rules you make, the more rules you break. And there's more paranoia and guilt and a sense of criminality. And it's self-sabotaging. We have all these preconceived notions about God and God's rights and rules and rituals and disciplines and dogmas and doctrines, and it's just messing up our heads. To get free of all that, it seems frightening because you always have in the back of your mind, you're going to go to hell, you're going to be a reprobate, you know, God's going to reject you. That has been so indoctrinated, entrenched into our minds for at least the last 2,000 years, and really much longer than that, because all the religions, way back predating Christianity by thousands of years, have had fear of the gods. Whether that's Zeus or Jesus, Jesus, Joshua, Yeshua. There's been this fear of this angry, invisible, ubiquitous entity who knows what you're thinking, who's making a list, checking it twice, going to find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus, who's coming to town? Folks are scared of the second coming. Religion, faith-based, fear-based, I should say, not faith-based, fear-based and faith-biased religions basically scare the hell out of people. That's the intent, to get the hell out of you through fear. And maybe to keep you out of hell through fear. Because they fear hell, and it's in a ministry, it's easy to sell a person a ticket into heaven and a pass out of hell. So that's kind of what we do, and people are afraid of God and afraid of the devil and afraid of hell and afraid they're not going to make it into heaven and afraid of the saints or the church folk or the religious folk or the bishop or the pastor. I know what all that stuff is. 4 generations, classical Pentecostalism, fundamentalist Pentecostal, pew jumping, Bible toting, devil thumping, Christian. And it was holiness or hell. And I preached it with passion and with some measure of the anointing, and I meant it sincerely, with tears streaming, perspiration spewing spit out of my mouth, screaming into microphones. A good old-fashioned King James version of the organ that I call a Hammond B3 with a Leslie speaker. Today I get chills when I hear that kind of music. But I'm adjusting all of that. I'm shifting into a broader sense of reality, and I don't apologize for it. Why did not God show me this, or the universe, or whatever, show me this a lot earlier? I don't think I would have listened. I'm older now. I know what it is to fly in private jets and to stay in these beautiful suites and have all the royal treatment and sign autographs for hours at a time and do television, and I'm not denouncing any of that. It was fun. I have nothing against it. I want to prosper. I have nothing against wealth and prosperity. I don't preach it. So far, I haven't really reached it, but I've experienced some aspects of it. But that's all shallow, and the glitter and the emptiness of that. I know a lot of very wealthy people who are miserable. Of course, if you're going to be miserable, I'd rather be rich and miserable than poor and miserable. So I'm not denouncing wealth in any way, but I'm saying I've experienced all that in my earlier life, and so if I never do it again, and I might, but if I never experience it again, I'm cool. It's not like I can say I never went to Paris or Rome or London, South Africa, Vancouver, BC, Las Vegas, everywhere. Just San Francisco, New York, LA, Chicago. I've had a great life. I have a great wife. I have 2 wonderful children. My parents are in their 80s. My dad's 86. My mom's 83. I love them. They're healthy. They're vibrant. They're not going to be here forever. Every moment with them, for me, is tender and precious. I have a brother, my only brother. He's in his 60s. Really one of my best friends on the whole planet. I love him. And we don't talk every day, but when we talk, we just connect. In fact, we're closer now than we ever were as kids. We didn't like each other as much. He's always been my hero. My brother has. My dad, he's precious. I have 4 sisters whom I adore. I have a great life in that sense. Challenges, struggles, yes. I don't know a life without them. In the highest peaks of my life, to when I walked away $multi-million worth of property and buildings and a 645-acre lake, ranch with a 27-acre lake on it, which I had bought for kids and troubled teens, and I had visions and plans, and all that in the last 10 years, all gone. What I have in this house is the furniture that I've had. It's all paid for. I'm in an apartment. I don't even own a home. At 60, if you don't own a home, you're homeless. So that, something I got. I didn't expect at 60 years old to be without all that. But I found me. I remember that song. I lost it all, but I found everything. I died a pauper to be born a king. For when I learned how to lose, I found out how to win. I lost it all, found everything. When I learned how to lose, I found out how to win. I lost it all, but I found everything. I found me. So now this freedom says, help other people who want it. Everybody doesn't want freedom. At least they don't know they want it. Help other people find it. The traditional concept of hell is the most erroneous, outdated, misunderstood, and misguided dogma in all of Christianity, and one that must be discarded if peace on earth will ever have a chance of being globally experienced, or if Christianity as a spiritual tradition is to survive as anything more than a contemptible curiosity. That's in one of my books. I'm quoting my book, God is Not a Christian. Unless you twist it to contain such a message, unless you twist it to contain and maintain such a message, the Bible does not support the idea of a place where souls go to be punished for eternity for their sins. Now you can interpret that way, and there was a time when I did, because that's the way I was taught. But I hated that concept. I hated that doctrine. I feared it for myself and to those to whom I preached it. But because I either believed it or accepted it, I felt it irresponsible of me not to warn other people that they were going to hell. I lived and breathed it. And I constantly felt guilt, day and night, for not grabbing every human being I encountered on an airplane, in a mall, in the grocery store. We were to pass out trash, win people to Christ, preach the gospel. And many Christians, especially of my dogmatic persuasion, the one I was raised in, felt a lot of guilt. It drives some Christians to drink or to disillusionment. They, quote unquote, backslide because they just cannot handle the pressure. They figure, if God knows what I'm thinking, then I'm already damned. I'm screwed. I might as well commit the sin physically and enjoy some portions of it if I'm going to think about it and God knows my thoughts. So one of the things I get most when I go to prisons, and I've done many prisons in Hawaii and South Africa, every place I've gone on the planet, if I had time, I visited jails and prisons. And one of the most consistent questions I get from prisoners, inmates, is, am I reprobate? Am I damned to hell? Have I blasphemed God? I'm such a terrible person. That's why I'm here. I'm going to hell. And I want to say, no, brother, you are in hell. This is hell. Prisons are hell. Jails, the feelings in there. That's as close to hell as you're going to get. Nobody goes to hell, but all of us goes through some aspects through hell. There's no eternal torture chamber. I know you interpret scriptures that way, and I haven't time in this brief thing. You read any one of my books, The Gospel of Inclusion, or God is Not a Christian. I show in the scriptures, hundreds of them, and in different translations of scripture, how we've misinterpreted and mistranslated the word. Hell is actually not in there. Gehenna, gay meaning gorge or gully, valley of Hinnom is in there. That's the only reference to hell Jesus made. Gehenna. It was at the time that Jesus lived. It was a literal dump. The southeast corner, I think it is, of Jerusalem. I've been there at least 12 times. There is no fire there now. But during Jesus' life and 500 to 600 years prior to his life, that heap was there. And they burned corpses, bodies of slaves and foreigners and rubbish heap and dead bodies of animals and all that kind of stuff. And the fire didn't go out, and the worm maggot didn't die. Jesus spoke of that. The worm dieth not, the flame goes not. Well, the worm is dead, the flame is out. If you go there now, you'll see picnic benches and park benches and palm trees and grass and flowers. That particular Gehenna, or hell, translated in some translations as hell, does not exist as it did in the first century and some of the succeeding centuries after that. But who knows that? The average preacher doesn't know. Hundreds and hundreds and thousands of preachers have never been to the Holy Land and will never go. They have never studied Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic, which is the language Jesus spoke in. They don't know anything about the Latin Vulgate or the Gutenberg Bible, which is in German. And English is a Heinz 57 mutt language. It's part German, part Greek, part Latin, part Hebrew. I mean, we just put things, and a lot of the words by association. And I'm a little bit of a linguist in that sense when it comes to English language. I study the encyclopedia, not because I'm a scholar or a linguist in that formal sense. I just read a lot. My grandfather bought me a set of encyclopedias when I was 14 or 15 years old. I'll never forget it. My parents couldn't afford it or didn't want to allocate money for it. The guy came by selling. I wanted it so badly. I told my grandfather about it. He got I think it was like $300 cash, which was like $3,000 to us. My grandfather, 84-year-old grandfather, he wasn't 84 at the time, but he died while he was living with me. I love him so much. Grandpa got him for me, and I got up curled up in my bed and just read the encyclopedia. And then I got a dictionary, and I read the words and I studied the words. Now I use the Strong's Concordance when I deal with Greek and Hebrew. It's very simple. Because I love knowledge. I love expanding my consciousness. I love growing. I love asking questions, answering questions, and then questioning the answers. That's how you grow. That's how you expand. That's all I'm trying to get people to do. So this whole idea of hell, which has tormented millions of people, maybe billions for millennia, we need to eradicate that concept. Religion has used it as a fear-based theology to control the masses. It's called Draconian thought, or dragons, like China's used the dragon to control the billions of people there for years, centuries, and decades, and millennia. The serpent and the snake and the fear of this reptilian thought, and how the draconian or the dragon thought, the legalistic religious thought, you can't break any rules, and we keep making rules to break and daring anybody to break them. It's made us crazy. There's a clinical psychosis in the earth. I was talking on a television program today about mental illness as it relates to gun control and guns, and it's very sad that Congress did not enact the gun control laws that the president and many people in this country want. Of course, gun control is just dealing with the symptom. The source of the guns. Do you know that more people in the state of Illinois kill themselves than somebody else with a gun? What does that say about the culture? Nationwide, more people commit suicide, kill themselves, than kill somebody else. That says something about how sick and how depressed and in what great disparity millions of people are. There's a 61% high. There's 61% of the gun murders in this state of Illinois are suicides, not homicides. So I'm as a psychologist, not a clinical psychologist, not a formal psychologist, but I'm thinking about how people think. What would cause so many people to kill themselves? How many people who don't kill themselves think about it repeatedly or several times, even in a day? How many people are subtly suicidal? They don't care about their bodies. They eat poorly. They don't rest. They don't exercise. They don't think. They don't care. They don't want to live. Many people have silent, subtle death wishes because their life is not working for them. Their marriages aren't working. They hate their jobs. They hate their lies. They hate their thighs. They hate their nose. They hate their toes. Their hips, their lips. They're miserable. They don't like being. They're very critical of themselves. And so if a person will kill themselves, they're probably not going to have much trouble killing you. So this is the kind of volatile society. So I want to say as a clinician, I'm not a clinician, but sometimes I feel like I'm taking somewhat of a clinical approach. I'm supposed to be a minister, a servant of the people. What can I do? What can you do? What can we do to not only make a difference in the world, but to make the world different or to create a different world? I think we have that opportunity daily, but we have it right now. So I'm working. I've met some very miserable people both in and outside of the church. You know, some of the most peaceful people, also sometimes the most angry, but some of the most peaceful people I have met are atheists or agnostics. And agnostics, that's when Paul talks about the statue to the unknown God, a rock that he was talking about in Athens, to the unknown God. The word is agnostos in Greek, where we get the word agnostic. You don't know. Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge. There's diagnosis, there's prognosis, there's ignosis, ignorance. You don't know, or you ignore, you don't pay attention to what you do know. That's what ignorance really is. There were atheists, and I am a theist. I am a theist. But I'm also agnostic. I admit that I don't know. And I'm not sure that it's necessary to know. I think you can experience God without ever knowing God, like you experience wind or air or breath or light, and never intricately know either. But you breathe in God essence. We live and move and possess or have our being, or be and have or behave. In God we live and move and behave. Check your behavior, your being and your having. How can I be who I am and have what I want or have what I need? I like the idea of the thinker. He lives inside of me. I keep him near me. I love thinking, and some people think I think too much, and I got myself in trouble thinking, I've gone through some trauma and some trouble thinking, but there's also something very freeing about that. Very, very liberating. And so this is a new age, this is a new day, this is a new world, this is a new normal. Don't fight the inevitable. This world is changing. Have we entered a new age of Aquarius? Do you study the signs of the times as Jesus admonished? That's another thing I posted. The old Hebrew word for zodiac is Mazzaroth. It's in the book of Job 38:32. Genesis 1:14 suggests the stars in the heavens are signs on the earth. That's what God is supposed to have said to Adam. The stars in the heavens are signs on earth. Each of the 12 houses of the zodiac. In Greek, zao, life, zoe, life, zoology. The signs of the zodiac or life in the skies. I mean, they concocted that years and years, millennia ago. But Aquarius is the age, house that we have now entered into. Aqua. Jesus says, his recorded said, when he was talking to his disciples about the Last Supper, the last meal he would eat with them. This was on Thursday night. By 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, he would be on the cross, and by 3 o'clock that afternoon, he'd be dead or transitioned. That's how quick that happened. But on that Thursday night, he was talking to his disciples about this Last Supper, the Feast of the Passover. He said to them, when you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him into that house. That's what Jesus said the night that he had his Last Supper. He said, I am with you to the end of the age. I must go so that the Comforter can come. I am with you. Lo, I am with you to the end of the age. The King James Version says the end of the world, but that's a mistranslation because in the Greek in which the New Testament was written, not spoken, but that's the way it was written to us. It is the word aeon, not the word cosmos, end of the cosmos. No, not end of the world, physical world, but into the aeon, the eons. You heard of the eons of time. The end of an age. We've come to the end of an age. Jesus said, follow the water-bearing man. That's the sign of the Aquarius. That's a hint of a new age, following 2,000 years of Pisces, to which Jesus was referring when he said, I'm with you to the end of Pisces. I sense something new and powerful on the horizon. This is it's scary to some people. Oh, now he's into zodiac. Now he's into horoscopes. Bishop Pearson's really gone off. I wish he'd just go back to Azusa. I'm not going back anywhere. I'm going forward. And you should too. You're miserable, or you wouldn't be complaining so much. The news is going to continue to carry stories about water and floods and glaciers melting and rising shorelines. Just right here in Chicago today, one of the worst floods in decades for some of the cities in the surrounding areas. And they're still predicting more water. Some of the rivers haven't crested yet. Water is a metaphor for spirit in Scripture. Religion, as we've known it, will be eclipsed by a new spirituality, which will in time become the new normal, among many other things that are going to change. Stay in an attitude of expectancy. Our best is yet and next to come. There's so much more to experience. There's so much more to express. There's so much more to expose. And we can all do it. So, what is this tremendous deep urge in your soul? By urge, I posted this week. I mean the strongest desire or impulse within you. What do you want? What is urgent and emergent in you? There's urgencies and there's emergencies. If you deal with it, if I need to stop this program or if I just need to go, if I have an urge to go to the restroom or the bathroom, if it's not critical, I can sit through the next 5 or 10 minutes and finish it. But if I can't hold it, it's an emergency. I have to put this thing on hold and tell y'all goodbye. I gotta go. Don't allow your urges to wait until they become emergencies. Figure out what you want in life most. Do you even know what that is? Most people don't know what they want. As human beings, we consist of 4 basic aspects of temperament, which can be referred to as planes of expression: physical, mental, emotional, and intuitive. These are planes that lead us to make certain choices that reflect our soul's urge. Sometimes there are superficial ones like drugs and drink, and sometimes food or sex. But your soul's urge goes beyond the appetite for food or sex. But it doesn't transcend the desire for full expression of the soul, full expression of the self, spiritually, sensually, sexually, and socially. All of that can happen. It can be realized in this life. In fact, it needs and is supposed to be realized. Full expression of your sensuality, of your sexuality, of your spirituality, of your sociology. Living and moving with people. That's why you're here. Learn what that means. Getting in touch with who you are and attending to the soul urges before they become soul emergencies is part of the discipline and inner demands of your personal evolution. The new spirituality has to do with self-realization, self-actualization, discovering and recovering the divinity that you are, the memories and memories, the nurturing of the soul at the breast of your own spirit, dealing with your hurts, completing your past. What drives you to drink or drug or to just too much chocolate cake? And I love it. Or Oreo cookies. I like those little, I think they call them twists or something like that, that have caramel. And I love turtles with the pecan stuck in the caramel and the creamy chocolate over it. I can eat those things forever. It's been that way since my mother used to eat katydids when I was a kid. She'd actually hide them under the bed, and I'd just go under there and get one at a time. She never noticed it. Anyway, doing so, finding who you are, recovering this divinity, is, in my opinion, a true born-again experience that Jesus talked about. Awakening, it has nothing to do with becoming a Christian, being born again. The word again in Greek is anothen, where we get the English word another, or I like to say ether, the etherness and otherness of divine mind. When you awaken to that, it is a mind-altering drug, too. I mean, you start thinking differently about everything. And it can happen repeatedly in life. You keep evolving and transcending and transisting. You go through various transitions of self. And you become more translucent and transpiring and transmuting, if you will. You shift. It's powerful. It's liberating. It's free. So I want you to think about all that and what it all means and should mean to you as we start reconsidering, again, what we believe, why we believe it, how those beliefs add to or subtract from the quality of our lives. It's time to stop. We've been here almost an hour. I am. Charles Holt wrote this song and now sings it. And he's going to be with us here in Chicago later on this summer at the gathering. An angel asked me, do you know who you are? The question and the answer is not very far. Oh. The knowledge, song of the sages, knowledge of the ages. It's where you reside. You're a composite of all that. You are the key that unlocks the door to enter in that sacred, secret place you haven't gone before. Deep meets deep, soul to soul. Feel that connection as the truth unfolds. It layers and layers like an onion, and you're becoming your I am being, your I am person. You're expanding and extending yourself to the various measurements of the soul, the dimensions of the self. You are. I like this. We're almost finished. Here. You are the answer. You are the key. Unlocks the door to freedom and leads you to me as a friend deep inside. Trust the force, the power that guides you. You're being guided by an inner knowing and an inner sense. There's no separation We're one in the same. Child of creation and of the Creator, but known by different names. Alpha and Omega. Whoa. We are. I like it. You like this? If you can feel it, tune in. Will you support what we're doing? Take a minute. Go to the little donate button down there. I don't know whether it's green or red. And take your bank card and make a dip. We're moving out of this place just here in the next... Actually, I have 2 months where I have to wait till my next place becomes available. But we'll still be presenting to you each Thursday night. And downsizing a little bit and living within our means. But I got a kid in college that I want to put back in next fall. So we're going to sell some stuff and make some adjustments. Just do it. I don't complain. Just make whatever adjustment you have to make. Because I still am. And you are. Will you stand with us? We're going to expand this. We're talking about online radio, some other discussions. But it takes money to do it. Sometimes my staff, I need some help. And, I have to pay people. I have a lot of volunteers, but some people I need consistently. So do what you can, okay? I trust that you will listen and hear and feel and respond. God is good, and so are you. I love you. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for your consciousness. I am. You are. Come on. Goodbye. Much love. Much peace. Your best is yet and next to come. Goodbye now.